Good morning, Scotland. Good morning, social media land. I hope you are well. It is Thursday, the 10th of October 2024. Does Scotland's history show a demonstrable correlation in the lack of unity with the modern independence movement? Today, with my limited knowledge of history, we're going to discuss this very thing and ask the question, will we ever come together to fight under one banner of independence? Or are we doomed to repeat history and struggle to come together to meet our goals? Scotland's modern independence movement has gained substantial momentum over the years, particularly with the rise of the Scottish National Party. However, despite this progress, the movement is frequently hindered by internal divisions. Factions within the movement have emerged disagreeing on strategies, goals, and even the timing of another independence referendum. These disagreements are not new to Scotland's history. In fact, they mirror the internal conflicts that plagued Scotland during the Wars of Independence in the 13th and 14th centuries. Following the death of King Alexander III in 1286, Scotland was thrown into chaos with no clear heir to the throne. This power vacuum left to infighting among Scotland's noble families, each vying for power in a politically fractured landscape. This disunity made Scotland vulnerable, and Edward I of England took advantage of the situation. By asserting his claim as overlord of Scotland, Edward imposed his will, installing John Balliol as puppet king. Yet many Scots resisted English rule, and divisions deepened when nobles supported Balliol and others pushed back against both English control and the weak Scottish monarchy. This period of fragmentation weakened Scotland much as today's divisions weaken the modern independence movement. One of the first major figures to unite the Scots against the English dominance was William Wallace, a leader who led a fierce resistance in the late 12th and 13th century. Wallace's victory at the Battle of Stirling Bridge in 1297 rallied many Scots behind the cause of freedom. However, his efforts were undermined by Scotland's lack of unified leadership. This lack of unified leadership undermining a cause to better the people sounds so very familiar. After Wallace's defeat at the Battle of Falkirk in 1298, his movement faltered and internal betrayal led to his capture and brutal execution by the English. This betrayal by fellow Scots, many of whom sought to protect their own interests, was a stark example of how internal divisions can sabotage a broader movement. Yet Wallace's legacy lived on, inspiring future generations of Scots, most notably Robert the Bruce. Initially, Bruce's own loyalty was divided as he sought to secure claim to the Scottish throne by occasionally supporting English rule. For example, the Bruces sided with King Edward against King John and his common allies. Robert the Bruce and his father both considered King John a usurper. However, after his decisive break with the English, particularly following his murder of rival John Comyn in 1306, Bruce committed fully to the cause of Scottish independence. Bruce's leadership was pivotal in Scotland. He eliminated rivals and secured alliances, forging a single, unified front against English oppression. His leadership culminated at the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, where a united Scotland dealt a crushing blow to the English army. This victory wasn't just a military triumph, it demonstrated that a divided Scotland was vulnerable and a united Scotland could stand up against the most powerful of forces. Bruce's efforts eventually led to the Treaty of Edinburgh-Northampton in 1328, which recognised Scotland's independence under his rule. The parallels of today's independence movement are clear. In both the medieval and modern periods, Scotland's greatest obstacle to independence has been internal divisions. Today, the Scottish National Party is the dominant force in the independence movement, but it faces competition from other pro-independence parties like Alba and the perceived broken trust from many independent supporters. This division often centres on differences in strategy, whether to pursue a more immediate and radical push for independence, or take a slower, more cautious approach. Also, a difference in ideology, such as policies like the GRR bill causing a massive rift amongst the entire movement. The common denominator in them all, though, is the union propaganda machine and the oligarch-owned media stoking and cultivating the divisions. We can see the use of the media with the blue tent outside Nicola Sturgeon's house when evidence was being gathered for alleged embezzlement of £600,000 worth of party funds. But there's no blue tents outside any of the Tory party members or their cronies who benefit fraudulently in millions during COVID. The divisions are there, the divisions are real, but they're made hotter by the union media interference. But they're not just political, they run through the electorate too. Scotland's 2014 referendum showed a 55-45 split in favour of remaining in the United Kingdom, and while support for independence has grown particularly after Brexit, differences in opinion remain. With some Scots, the differences are about economic stability, others about Scotland's relationship with the European Union, and still others about the future of the monarchy. These different visions for an independent Scotland echo the factionalism of medieval times when nobles debated about what kind of country a free Scotland would be. Just as Robert the Bruce was able to unite Scotland's factions and win independence, today's independence movement must learn to put aside their differences. The lessons from history are clear. Disunity is the greatest threat to any movement for independence. If Scotland's pro-independence factions continue to squabble, they risk prolonging their subjugation to the Union. But if they can unite, as Bruce did with his armies at Bannockburn, they stand a much better chance of achieving their goals. Modern Scottish politics must take heed of this historical lesson. As long as the independence movement remains divided, it risks weakening itself from within, much like the nobles who betrayed Wallace or aligned themselves with the English crown. These factions must recognise that their real adversary is not the slightly different visions of their fellow Scots, but the Union itself, which continues to benefit from our divisions. While the political entities and their followers squabble amongst themselves for political legitimacy, and while we remain critical of our brothers and sisters in arms, Scotland suffers under the Union when it could be basking in the wealth of freedom. If you fall into this category, you need to start picking your fights with the true enemy.
I can't get no sleep.